This deeply moving Christian motivational story reveals the power of saying no through the story of Panod, a great cedar who believed holiness meant never refusing anyone. As Panod gives and gives his shade, his fruit, his very body, he slowly loses the life God planted within him. In the golden valley of Aveline, where the mist clings to the meadows like a soft prayer, stood Panod. Panod was not just any tree. He was a great cedar, his boughs stretching wide like the arms of a cathedral, his roots drinking deep from the hidden springs of the earth. For generations, Panod believed his purpose was singular, to be the embodiment of yes. He took his inspiration from the scriptures he heard the villagers recite during their picnics beneath his canopy. He heard of sacrifice, the giving of one's life for another, and the beauty of a servant's heart. Panod took these words to heart, perhaps too literally. He equated his holiness with his hollowness. In the early years, Panod's generosity was a beautiful thing. To the weary traveler, he offered a shade so deep and cool, it felt like a physical rest. To the hungry villager, he dropped his sweetest fruit, never begrudging a single bite. To the nesting bird, he gave his sturdiest branches, swaying gently so as not to disturb their sleep. The villagers called him the Blessed One. Panod felt a glow of pride. He believed that as long as he kept giving, he was fulfilling the will of the Creator. He didn't realize that even the earth takes a Sabbath, and even the clouds must refill before they can rain again. The shift happened slowly. One autumn, a woodcutter named Silas approached Panod. Silas didn't need fruit. He needed timber for a fence. "Panod," Silas whispered, patting the bark, "you are so strong. If I take just one lower limb, I can protect my sheep from the wolves. Surely a tree of God would want to save the innocent lambs?" Panod felt a pang of hesitation. That limb held his favorite moss, a soft velvet he had grown for years. But he thought of the lambs. Is it not better to give? He asked himself. Yes, Panod rustled his leaves. The saw cut deep. It was a sharp, stinging grace. Panod told himself the pain was a badge of honor. Success breeds expectation. When the villagers saw that Panod would give his very body, the request changed from needs to wants. A young man wanted a branch for a decorative chest. Yes. A merchant wanted wood for a larger cart to carry more gold. Yes. A group of children wanted to carve their names deep into his trunk, scarring the sap veins that carried his lifeblood. Yes. Each time, Panod felt a little thinner. The shade he offered grew patchy. The fruit he produced became small and bitter because his energy was spent healing the wounds of the saw and the blade. He was so busy being good to everyone else that he forgot how to be well for himself. He began to pray, but his prayers were tired. Lord, why do I feel so empty if I am doing your work? The wind whispered back. Even the master withdrew to the mountains to pray. Why do you think you can pour from an empty cup? But Panod was too busy saying yes to listen. Winter was coming, and a cold snap hit Aveline. The villagers were desperate for firewood. They didn't go to the forest of scrub oak. They went to the easy source. They went to Panod. If we take the trunk, they reasoned, the whole village will be warm for a month. Panod is so kind, he wouldn't want us to shiver. Panod looked at his stripped form. He was no longer a cathedral. He was a skeleton. He felt a sudden, terrifying realization. They weren't asking because they loved him. They were asking because he never said no. He gave his final yes as the saw leveled him. By nightfall, the great cedar of Aveline was a flat, jagged stump in the dirt. Snow covered the valley. Panod sat in the silence, a mere circle of wood at the ground's edge. He was no longer useful. No one came to thank the stump. The villagers, warmed by their fires of Panod wood, had already forgotten the shade he once provided. I gave everything, Panod cried out in his spirit. I followed the law of love. Why am I forgotten? A soft light seemed to settle on the frost-covered rings of his heart. A voice, steady and kind, spoke into his core. "Panod, you mistook sacrifice for suicide. I called you to be a tree to grow high, to bear fruit, and to live long. By saying yes to the woodcutters, you said no to the birds who needed a home. By saying yes to the merchant's cart, you said no to the travelers who needed your shade. You allowed the world to consume what I intended for you to steward." Panod wept sap. "But I wanted to be like you." "I am the vine," the voice replied, "and even the vine has a wall around the vineyard. Survival is not selfishness, Panod. It is the preservation of the gift I placed within you." Spring arrived, but Panod was different. Deep within the stump, a tiny green shoot began to stir. It was a new life. As the shoot broke through the bark, a traveler stopped by. "Oh, look," the man said, reaching down. "A tender sprout. I'll pull it up and use it for a walking stick." The old Panod would have yielded, but the new Panod felt a surge of holy fire in his roots. He hardened his tiny stem. He pushed back against the man's fingers with a stubborn, silent strength. "No," Panod thought. "This life is not for your convenience. This life is for the glory of the one who planted me." The man, surprised by the resilience of the tiny twig, moved on. Panod grew again, but he grew with boundaries. He grew bark that was thick and unyielding. He still gave fruit, but only when it was ripe. He still gave shade, but he kept his core for the Lord. He learned that the word no is often a yes to one's own soul. Generosity without boundaries is not grace. It is enabling. If you let the world take everything, you will have nothing left to give to the one who made you. Sometimes, the most spiritual thing you can do is stand your ground and say, "This far and no further."